Hello, my name is LoG's. Welcome to the final part of this powerful Flat 5 mini-series. In the first video, we went over using the Flat 5 in a subtle passing tone way, giving us sort of a mild flavor. And then in the second video, we brought out the Flat 5 using a variety of means, giving us a medium flavor. Well, today we're going to bring out the Flat 5 even more, giving us what I would consider to be a stronger flavor, and we're going to do that by using a concept that I personally really enjoy, a concept that I call pretend chords, which is when you pretend a chord or a sound is happening when it really isn't. So we'll be thinking about a particular sound even though it's something else. And the only criteria we have to make sure to follow is the pretend chord that we're thinking about has to have that one note that this whole series is about, the flat 5 of the original chord. Before we begin, let's first listen to what this sounds like. If you would like a primer on the idea of pretend chords, feel free to click the link above to take you to a previous lesson that I did on this topic. Also, don't forget to check out the corresponding backing track for this series of lessons at the link below. And as usual, if you enjoy this type of instructional material, feel free to check out my entire guitar method through Patreon at the other link below. And now let's get on to the lesson. Much like the previous video, a lot of the ideas that we're going to be talking about in this video are going to sound pretty nasty, pretty odd, maybe pretty strange, so they're not really going to be for everyone. I still think it's really important to at least understand why they sound the way they do in case you want to use these type of sounds down the road. How we're going to approach this lesson is we're going to find a very simple, like foundational pretend chord, a very simple chord, nothing crazy, not some like huge scale or wild sound, something very simple. And then from that simple sound, we will branch off and find a bunch of other connected sounds that we can use. So we're going to go over a bunch of different sounds that you can kind of pick and choose whichever ones you want to use. But the most important thing isn't necessarily the specific sounds that I'm talking about. The most important thing is you understand how I'm finding these, right? How I'm discovering the pretend chord, how I'm finding all of those like sub sounds that kind of branch off that are connected to that original pretend chord, because then you can take that idea and apply it to whatever you want. You can apply it to a completely different key, completely different chord, a completely different pretend chord. You can kind of apply this however you want. That's the most important thing, understanding how I'm coming up with these sounds, because then you can do whatever you want. So with that in mind, let's get on to this first pretend chord that's going to be based on a very simple major arpeggio. So the actual sound that we're playing this whole time is, of course, E flat minor. And all we want to do is find another sound that we can pretend is happening, as long as that other sound has the flat 5 in it. This A that we've been talking about for this whole time. So last time I played a lick that sounded like this. And I noticed when I played that lick, I had one little shape in there that reminded me of another chord. This little figure. So see these two little major thirds moving back and forth? This one was very normal. That was just E flat minors 5 and 3. But this one, the next one, was E flat minors flat 5 and 2. And when I played this, it made me hear or kind of think of another chord. It kind of sounded like this, E flat minor to F major. Kind of sounded like that. It maybe almost kind of implies another chord progression altogether. Maybe E flat minor to F major, eventually moving to B flat minor. It kind of feels like I'm doing that when I play just these two little notes, and my ears hear that. So what is that progression? That feels like I'm playing a 2 chord to a major 3 chord, resolving to the 6 chord, right? So that's a major chord, a 5 of 6, a 5 of a minor chord. So inside of that sound, if you're already familiar with this, lives a whole bunch of other sounds that we can think of as well. So if you're not familiar with this, we're going to walk through all of those sounds through a very simple process, and you can see all the different things we can think about. But first, we need to make sure that, does that F chord actually work in this situation? Do all of the notes of that F chord function somehow over the actual chord that's happening, this E flat minor? Let's see. Here's F major right here, 1, 3, 5 of F major. But what are these notes of E flat, the actual chord? This note, the root of F is E flats 2. The third of F right here is E flats, flat 5. That, of course, is not in the key, but that's the note we're talking about for this whole series, so we have to play it. And then the pointer finger up top, that's F's 5, but what is it of E flat? That would be 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, natural 6. Which makes sense because earlier I mentioned this chord feels like a 2 chord in this situation, and natural 6 is the naturally occurring note over a 2 chord, right? Also known as Dorian if you're using those terms. I personally don't, but if that makes sense to you, you can call it that, right? Kind of like minor 6. Nice. So all of these notes of F major work over the actual chord that's happening. So I can do very simple things like play E flat minor, sneak into a quick little F major chord, and then resolve however I want, right, to create this sound. And what is the key note that is inside of this pretend chord? The flat 5, right, the whole point of this series. So now let's expand on this sound and add more notes, see what other stuff we can get from this. And how we're going to do that? Very simply. We're going to use F major as our foundation, and we're simply going to take each note of the actual chord's pentatonic scale, so E flat minor, and add in each of those notes one at a time to F major and see what we get. So let's get started. Actually, first, let's go over what those notes are of E flat minor pentatonic. E flat is the root, G flat is the flat 3, A flat is the 4, B flat is the 5, D flat is the flat 7. So let's add in all of those notes one at a time to F major, see what we get. Let's add in the root of E flat, so E flat. F major with E flat, what would that be? F, A, C, E flat, also known as 1, 3, 5, flat 7, or dominant 7th, which makes sense because the original progression that I was hearing earlier, E flat minor to the 5 of B flat, oftentimes dominant 7th is the sound that you would play for that. So nice, I've got this new pretend chord that I can think of. Not only can I think of F major, but I can think of F dominant if I want to, right? And we'll go over some licks and whatnot in a moment. So that's nice, a new sound that I can think of. Let's add in the next note. Here's E flat minor. We already added the E flat. Let's add in the G flat. What would that be? That is F major's flat 2. So now I have a major sound with flat 2, right? Kind of fancy sounding. Or I have, of course, a dominant 7th with a flat 2. Also pretty cool, right? Starting to sound familiar, I'm sure, to some of you. Nice, so I can play those sounds if I want to, if I've got a bunch of licks that fit into that sound. And really, what is that sound? Dominant 7 with flat 2, also known as flat 9, one of these. Right, I'm sure you've played those types of sounds before. Now, inside of this, if you're familiar with this, there's actually another hidden sound that we can play. And what is it? If you play F dominant, but get rid of the root and only play the flat 2 instead of the root, you have a sound more commonly known as diminished 7, a sound that is copy and pastable up or back 3 frets. And if I move this around, notice what one of my roots can be. If I play right there, that's the same chord. Notice my root, E flat. The root of the actual chord, how easy is that? Over E flat minor, we can pretend E flat diminished 7. And what would the notes be? E flat diminished 7 is E flat, the 1 of E flat, G flat, the flat 3, chord tone, super normal, A, the flat 5, the note we're trying to play this whole time, and C, the natural 6. We already decided we can play all of those notes. So this sounds super easy. You can play E flat minor, then dip into a quick little diminished. And as long as you know how to resolve, you can get some really nice sounds with a very easy shape. Let's keep going. We just did E flat, G flat. Now let's add in this A flat right here. What would that be? F major with A flat. 1, 3, 5 plus this note. That feels like F major or F dominance adding in like the flat 3 as well as the normal 3, like this. Kind Kind of an interesting sound. Most people would not look at this as flat 3. They would look at this as sharp 9, which I'm sure you've played this sound before. F dominant with sharp 9. The Hendrix chord, as it's most commonly known as. What you're really doing, though, is you're playing an F major also with the flat 3. So major 3 and flat 3 at the same time. And then we can combine everything we've done so far. F major with E flat, G flat, and A flat. What would that be? F dominant with flat 2 and flat 3. Let's see what that would sound like. Already getting some pretty cool, some pretty interesting sounds, right? So let's keep going. What about the next note? E flat's 5, B flat. What would that be over F major? Let's go back to our straight up F triad, 1, 3, 5, plus B flat. That's the 4 of F. So we have a little shape like this, 1, 3, 4, 5. Kind of cool, right? That's simple, more kind of normal sounding shape. We can play this on top of course, the actual chord that's happening. What about F7 plus this note, plus the 4? Also pretty cool. What about F7 plus the 4 and the flat 2, one of the other notes we added earlier? I'm sure it's starting to sound like something pretty familiar to a lot of you. Okay, nice. We'll go over some licks and whatnot here in a moment. Let's keep going. We only have one more note to add, and that will be this. It sounded like I was about to play Steely Dan. Something like that. Anyway, so this note, what is this? D flat, okay? I know that's E flat minor's flat 7, but what is it of our pretend chord, this F major or F dominant? Let's see. 1, 3, 5. We want to add this note. Well, what did I just do? 1, 3, 5. I am sharping the 5. What is a chord with 1, 3 sharp 5? Also known as augmented. Another chord that you can move around up or back a major third in whatever way you want and get some interesting sounds. Another pretend chord that I can think of. I can pretend F augmented or A augmented, right? Or D flat augmented. All of those chords are the same thing. All of those sounds live inside of this structure that I've given myself. Pretending F major is happening, right? And adding in notes from the actual sound, this E flat minor, right? And what can I do now? How about I kind of combine a bunch of these notes to see if I can get like a full scale sound out of this. All of the sounds I've been playing so far have been mostly kind of arpeggios or maybe like a pseudo scale. But what happens if I added in a bunch of notes? Check this out. I'm going to play F major plus the flat 2, the 4, and the new note that I just found, this note, the sharp 5. What would I play or what would I get if I did all of that? 1, flat 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6 or sharp 5, flat 7, and then 1. I'm sure you've heard this sound before, right? What is this? I personally call this, my fun name for this sound is the spicy 3 chord, but a lot of people would call this Phrygian dominant. Again, I don't really use those terms, but if that makes sense to you, that is what we're doing right here, right? You can pretend that whole sound on top of E flat minor. So what are we doing? E flat minor is the actual sound. I'm simply going up a whole step and playing either major, dominant, right? Augmented was one of them. Maybe like a suspended, right? Because we're adding in 4. Do something like that. That little diminished chord on top of the E flat, that's also connected. We can play that full kind of, fancy Phrygian dominant, if that's what you want to call it. We can do that too. All of that on top of this pretend chord. And you can see how I got to all of these sounds. I gave myself a simple structure, F major, and then from there, just built upon it, added notes from the E flat, discovered new sounds, noticed sounds that I've already played, like diminished or dominant or augmented. And because I'm playing all of these sounds over a totally different context, they will sound totally different. If you play an F7 idea over an F7 chord, it's going to sound pretty normal. There's nothing out of the ordinary about it. But if you play an F7 idea, the exact idea But if you do it on top of E flat minor, it sounds so different. It sounds so fancy because the notes are now interacting with the chord in a different way. That's the beauty of these pretend chords. You can recycle, reuse licks that you already know over a totally different context, giving you a totally different sound. So think about all of the notes that we just played. A lot of pretty wild sounds, pretty different sounds that we're accessing. Guess how many notes are out of the key? 1. And what is that one note that's out of the key? The note we've been talking about this whole time, E flats, flat 5. So you can see how many different colors we can get just by going through this process. So with that in mind, let's now transition over to some kind of simple licks and ideas that use all of these sounds. All right, this is going to be a collection of a couple ideas using all of the sounds that we talked about. Again, featuring the flat 5 by pretending F major and all of those other sounds that we came up with. The first one is going to be really simple. We're going to be traveling back and forth from E flat minor triad and F major triad. So just triads for both of the sounds, really easy. And we're going to use these small little chord shapes up top. This is our E flat minor right here, flat 3 5 1. F major right here, 1 3 5. E flat minor, 1 flat 3 5. F major, 5 1 3. And of course, you can just play the chords. Like that's kind of cool. You can do that, but I'm going to play them like a lead. I'm going to descend each one, but I'm going to add in a little passing tone to get me into the F chord whenever it happens. Down E flat minor, little passing tone right here, back a fret into F major, right? Just down the shape. E flat minor, repeating this note, little passing tone, get me into F right there. So it'll sound like this. And then I'll end kind of however I want. Let's play that over the track, see what it sounds like. Coming from E flat. Here we go. Again. Pretty cool. And I like that one because it's really just arpeggio, right? It's just 1 3 5. We're not playing any like large, wild scale shape, even though those are cool. Sometimes just focusing on the core arpeggio gets you this really focused, strong sound, especially when you're playing around with this pretend chord idea. Very cool sound. Next one is going to be also pretty simple, just F dominant. It's just a little pattern like this. So I'm starting, again, thinking F, even though the chord is not F, it's E flat. I'm thinking F, starting on its 5 and walking down like this. And I'm resolving at the end into the E flat minor, ending on the F, our pretend chord moving up a fret, playing the flat 3 1 of the actual chord. So you can get into that kind of however you want, starting up here on E flat minor, right? And then just hitting that note whenever you want. Something like that. Let's try this over the track, see what it sounds like. Here we go, right here. Pretty cool, coming from E flat minor. Nice sound, pretty subtle, which sometimes is pretty cool, and that's just F dominant with a little bit of a pattern. Next one is going to be featuring kind of one of the stronger sounds and one of the easier sounds to play, and that is diminished 7. And we discovered this sound by playing F dominant, but also playing flat 2 at the same time. So 1, flat 2, 3, 5, flat 7. And when we take that sound and don't play the 1 at all and only play flat 2, 3, 5, flat 7, we get a diminished chord. And one of the starting locations for that was, easy enough, E flat, the actual chord we're playing. So we can play E flat minor and then transition right into E flat diminished. Very, very easy. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start this at a different location. I'm going to start this on one of the other starting locations. What is one of the other starting locations? E flat, flat 3, or flat 5, our main target note. So I'm actually going to start my lick right here. My lick is going to take me from this flat 5 all the way up to that flat 5. And the pattern looks like this. Literally just up a diminished 7 arpeggio, nothing weird about it. Slide up here to the next register, up a minor third, come down like this, 2 tritones. Pretty easy sound, kind of fun. Up the shape. Then when you get back to this A, resolve just up a fret. Because now we're right back to E flat minor. I'll do that whole thing. Really cool sound, and I always like playing these diminished ideas, focusing on the flat 5, because that flat 5 always sounds real nice, resolving up a fret into the normal 5, right? That's what we're doing right here. kind of have to be careful because, of course, this idea is copy and pastable. I can move it anywhere I want, but some of the notes will not resolve as smoothly as that one does. Like, for example, if I start right here on E flat, the root of the actual sound, which I know I can do, watch what happens. Up the same exact shape. But notice, here I am, I'm already on the note that I would resolve to. So if I say, I'm going to just resolve up a fret, I'm now on a note that's definitely not correct or not going to be smooth. So sometimes the lick will resolve really nicely just up a fret. Other times, you're kind of already on the note that you would resolve to. So you have to kind of modify a little bit. Maybe move somewhere else. Or you could just keep going. Like if you want to play a longer, like a bigger diminished shape, you could do like... something like that. That's a little bit, more of like an involved shape, but that could be kind of cool. Let's try all of this over the backing track. The first one, starting on flat 5. It's a nice one. Let's try the longer one, starting on E flat. Kind of cool. Kind of have to be into those, pseudo obnoxious diminished 7 runs, but sometimes they can be kind of cool. And then another thing you can do that is still diminished 7, but it's actually using the chord shapes. So these are the basic diminished 7 chord shapes that you probably know. All I'm doing is I'm using them like a lead. I'm just walking up the shape and down the neck. So something like this. Do it one more time. Or maybe the opposite, down this one, up the next, like this. Excuse me. It's kind of a cool sound, and the technique that I'm using is a combination of pick and fingers. So maybe I'm going to do this, coming down, just like economy picking. Up the next one, maybe pick, finger, finger, pick, like that. It's kind of up to you to figure out how you want to do. If you want to do like sweep picking the whole time, I kind of suck at that, so I'm not going to do it, but that would work pretty well also. Notice where I'm choosing to resolving on the shape that ends with the flat 5, because the flat 5 resolves really nicely up to the normal 5. So, pretty cool sound. I'll try that over the track real quick. Again. Pretty cool. I like that sound. Pretty subtle, it's not super, super strong because we are just implying the same chord over and over again, but pretty cool. Next one is going to be based on F7, so F dominant, 1, 3, 5, flat 7, our main sound for the pretend chord, but I'm also adding in the 4, one of the notes we discovered that we could do, getting this sound. Almost like a suspended sort of sound, and the pattern I was playing sounded like this. I'll play it slow. One of my favorite sounds. And I'm going to try to do this as 16th note triplets because I think that's when it sounds the best. Pretty cool sound, flows pretty well. And let me just show you what that pattern is. Really simple. Starting on flat 7, 1, roll the finger for the 4, walk up, kind of do the same thing right here. 3, 4, 1, right, 3, 5, continue. Roll the finger again. And then move up like that. Again, the exact lick isn't important. It's more just the general sound. Let's try it over the track. E flat minor, normal. Here we go. Again. Pretty cool. I like that one. I probably would have to play that one a little more and figure out a different way to end it because I'm ending it fine, but I think there's a better way at some point, so I'll figure that out. Next one is going to be based on the augmented shapes. Very similar to what we talked about with the diminished idea, how they're copy and pastable, right? Augmented, same thing. So all of the shapes that we're about to play are copy and pastable up or back 4 frets or a major third. And this augmented shape is based off of the actual pretend chords. So we're pretending F major, we're actually going to play F augmented. So what are the starting locations? We can start on F, the root of the pretend chord, A, the third of the pretend chord, which is also the flat 5, the main note we're talking about, flat 5 of E flat, or this note, this D flat or C sharp, the sharp 5 of the F, or the flat 7 of the actual chord, the E flat minor, however you want to think about that. So any shape that you're playing, you can run it up or back, copy and paste it. So I actually like this shape right here. It's a big, long, augmented arpeggio, and I'm moving down like this. right? It's a really common shape. I'm sure many of you already know this. Pretty simple. I'm just starting here, going down major thirds until I don't have any more. So here's that, down a major third, another, until I get here. And then I'm going to look for a place to resolve because I know I'm on flat 5 right now. Slide up a fret, and that takes me to E flat minor again. Now, if I do it on the next location, which would be here, right, just up a major third, same exact shape, I'm going to resolve differently. Notice that one moves up a whole step, taking me to the root of the sound, the main sound that's happening. And then, of course, if I move up another one right here, I want to see where this one resolves also. Same exact shape, just up another major third. This one resolves up a half step, taking me to the flat 3 of the actual sound. So I can cycle back and forth between those to get some interesting sounds. See what we get. Roll back a little bit. Here's the first one, right? If I play at the end of the phrase, notice I resolved up a half step to the flat 5. Let's try the next one. Here we go. One more time. I kind of like that. Like that rhythmically, it's kind of cool. Next one, up the next register, up another major third. Remember how I need to resolve this. Pretty cool, right? Just figuring out how I want to resolve the shape, memorizing how it goes, using my ear, using my intuition, and I can get it pretty easily. The next one is going to be another augmented one, just a kind of a simple one that I like that just travels like the length of the fretboard. We're moving from this low F, the root of the pretend chord, all the way up to this F. And we're doing that by connecting simple little augmented 3-note shapes. Watch this. F, up a major third to A, little augmented shape, up to the next F, major third, just stack little major thirds, up to the next F, stack little major thirds. And then we end on this F, kind of helping us resolve into the chord. And you can do this kind of free time as well, which sounds pretty cool. So like, right? Ending, resolving, kind of however you want. Really cool sound. I like that one a lot. It really brings out those hard notes of that augmented sound, especially when you play it slower, kind of more free time. Okay, let's keep going. The next one is going to be kind of pretty much a straight up scale, and the main sound that we're playing right here is a sound that I personally call the spicy 3 chord or the major 3 chord, because that's what it is. You take the sound of a 3 chord, 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and you just make it major. So that gives us this 1, flat 2, 3, normal 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7. A lot of people call this Phrygian major, so if you want to call it that, you can. So this lick is pretty much that, almost like straight up. So I'm playing this. Again, ending on this F because it sounds cool. The pattern doesn't really matter. I mean, the main kind of interesting thing about this is I'm playing this figure, giving me like this little doubling of the F right there. That's kind of cool. So again, up the shape. So I'm doing a little figure like that, starting on the root, walking up, just that standard scale. And then when I get here, I start those kind of shenanigans. That's me just playing F, A, F, F, A, and playing the F on 2 different strings, which gives us kind of a cool sound. And then as I get to the top, I just kind of keep continuing through the sound, kind of however I want. Really cool sound, pretty common. Kind of common sound to play in this context, right? That kind of dominant 7th moving to the minor chord, which is where pretty much all of these sounds are coming from. Let's hear it over the track. This is a longer one, so I'm just going to kind of play it wherever. One more time. A little faster. Pretty cool. That one flows pretty well. I really like this whole, like, that kind of stuff. It just sounds really interesting. And then the next one, the last one, is going to be kind of like the most wild sounding one out of all of them. And it really is just like a mishmash of all of the notes that I kind of discovered as I was doing this. It's not really like a designated scale necessarily. I'm just noticing patterns that I like. And I noticed this. So remember, what is my root of the pretend chord that I'm playing? So F major, that's my main sound. I see the F right here. And I learned through the process that we just did earlier, borrowing the notes from E flat, putting it in here, I learned that I can play, of course, F, I can play its flat 2, I can play its sharp 2, and its normal 3. All of those notes are in the key, of course, except for the normal 3, but that's the flat 5 of the E flat, so that's the note we want to play. And I found like this little simple, kind of interesting sound, starting on a note, half step, whole step, half step. Kind of a cool sound that I wanted to experiment with. But then I noticed it happens in another place. It also happens, instead of starting on the root, happens starting on the 3rd of F, which again is the flat 5 of the sound. Watch this. That's 3, 4, 5, sharp 5, or flat 6. We know all of those notes already happened. We just went through a bunch of licks that have those notes in them. And that gives me, again, this little half step, whole step, half step sound. So I've got it right here starting on the 3rd of F, my pretend chord, and on the root of F. So I came up with a little pattern that was pretty simple. Right? So it sounds real wild, but I'm pretty much just playing all the same notes we just talked about with an interesting pattern. My pattern is this. Right? So sliding up the 1 half step, moving to the top note, moving back a half step, walking back, then jumping to the next one. Right? Starting there, back half step, jump up to the next half steps, move back, just like that. Then once I get here, come down, F augmented, why not? Just like that, flat 7, sharp 5, 3, 1 of F. And then resolving on E, just a nice easy, or excuse me, E flat, nice easy E flat at the end. I like this one a lot. It's real wild sounding, which is why it's cool, I think. Let's try it over the track. Try one more time. Right? It can sound pretty crazy, like once you play it like that, especially where you play it. I'm kind of playing it again in that safe zone at the end of the phrases, which kind of pushes your ear over into the next bar, so it lands pretty well. But if you start playing that kind of randomly, yeah, it'll sound pretty nuts. And again, what's the craziest thing? Think about that lick I just played. Sounds pretty interesting, pretty wild. Sounds like I'm playing some fancy out sound. Literally every single note that is in that entire lick that I just played is in the key. What's the key that we're playing? E flat minor as a 2 chord, right? So normal minor with a natural 6. That's what we're playing right here. Every single note that I'm playing right now. No matter how wild it sounds, all of those notes are in the key except for one note. What is that one note? The point of this whole series, the flat 5, right? So if I just go through all those notes, just so you can see what I'm talking about, in the context of E flat minor, watch this. Flat 5, 5, right? Flat 7, 6, 5, flat 5. All of these notes normal, except for the flat 5, of course. We're targeting that note. Here's the next one, the next little passage. What is this? Of E flat, 2, flat 3, flat 5, 4. All of these notes, normal notes, again, just sneaking in that pesky flat 5 up top that makes everything sound strange. So you can see how potent this flat 5 actually is. So with that in mind, let's move over to the final sound of this series, the last pretend chord. So for this last pretend chord, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to play a sound that was more similar to the actual chord that's happening, right? What's the actual chord that's happening? E flat minor. For the other pretend chord, we were playing on top of E flat minor, we were playing F major. So I was playing major ideas on top of this minor chord. But what I want to do now is I want to play minor ideas on top of the minor chord, but I want the flat 5, the note we're talking about this whole time, the A in this case, I want that to be embedded in my minor pretend chord. So all I need to do is play simple minor ideas and the flat 5 will naturally be happening. Exactly the same as what we just did, but a different chord that is minor this time. Well, if you look at the shape, there's one that actually stands out pretty cleanly. Here's our E flat minor. Here's the flat 5 right there. Check out if I play this group of notes. Flat 5, the flat 3 of E flat, and then the flat 7 of E flat. Look at that. That's a minor chord, right? This is flat 3, flat 5, flat 7 of E flat. But but it's also 1 flat 3 5 of this note. What note is this? G flat. I'm going to call it F sharp for here because it flows off my tongue a little bit better. So I have a minor chord that I can play on top of this other minor chord that happens to have the note that I'm trying to target, the flat 5. Okay, nice. I can push forward with this exactly like I did in the previous one, but I'm going to kind of speed up the process a little bit, and this is how I would naturally do it. Just by looking for other notes that kind of spark my memory and make me think, hey, wait a minute, I can play this note, so maybe this note will take me to all of these other notes. So for example, here I am with my pretend chord, minor, up 3 frets minor. I also notice that I can play this note right here, right? That's the root of the other pretend chord that we just talked about. But of the normal sound that's happening, it's the 2. Pretty normal note. Well, if I play this note and these 3, what am I playing right here? I'm playing a minor chord with a normal 7, right? 7, 1, flat 3, 5. What is this sound? Minor with a natural 7, more commonly known as what most people would play, at least, melodic minor, right? A minor sound, 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, all normal, but natural 6, natural 7. So I just discovered that, and now I'm thinking, does that sound work? Let me play that whole scale, all of those notes, alongside the actual chord that's happening, and see if all of the notes work. So I'll tap it out over here. This is the actual chord, right? That's our root of our hypothetical melodic minor that we're playing right now. We want to see if it works. Let's see what these notes are. This note, the starting note, the root of the melodic minor, is the 3 of the actual chord. So far, so good, right? This note right here, the 2 of the melodic minor, right, is the 4 of the actual chord. So far, so good. This note, flat 5 of the actual chord. So far, so good. This is flat 6, okay, of the actual chord. Flat 7 of the actual chord, right? 1 of the actual chord, and then 2 of the actual chord. So notice all of those notes are notes that we've already played before. We've definitely played flat 3, we've definitely played 4, we've definitely played flat 5. Obviously, that's the note we're trying to play. The only note we haven't really played is flat 6. This one right here, that's the 4th of this melodic minor right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is flat 6 of that. Not a note we've played before so far in this series, but flat 6, pretty normal note over pretty much every, not every minor situation, but often minor situations will have flat 6. You'll play this. It's kind of your standard minor scale. So that note, I'm not worried about it. I'm going to play it freely. And if it sounds a little bit out of the key, here's the beauty of it. I don't care. I value the sound more than being in or out of the key. I like the fact that I can, over this chord, go up 3 frets and play melodic minor. Why do I like that? Because now I have an excuse for playing melodic minor. If I've been practicing a bunch of melodic minor licks and I like how they sound, I've got a reason to use it now, right? I can use all of the licks that I've been practicing, all of the shapes that I've been practicing in this different context, which will sound different. So let's say I've got some cool, some lick that I've been practicing. I can now play it on top of this chord, knowing that it's going to give me this interesting sound, an interesting sound that features what note? The flat 5, the whole point of this. So that's another pretend chord. Nice. Okay. I've got this sound. That's a pretty full sound. A lot of ideas come out of that. A lot of sub-ideas that, of course, you could discover. But we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to do this. Can I simplify or dumb this down even more? What is the actual sound that I'm really playing over E flat minor? I'm really just playing minor pentatonic, right? That's the core sound of everything. Excuse me. Play that a little bit better. Can I do literally that, minor pentatonic, on this new minor location that I just found? So what am I doing? Up 3 frets, minor. I already figured out that I can play melodic minor starting here. But can I play just minor pentatonic, the literal same shape? Can I just do that right here? And then resolve? I mean, I did it right there and it all pretty much sounded pretty cool. What would the notes be? Let's see how out of the key I actually am. Here's the actual chord. I'm going to tap out the pentatonic just like I did before, but pentatonic. So here's my 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1 of this, right? This F sharp. But what is it of the actual chord? Flat 3, right? Chord tone, perfectly normal. Flat 5, the note we're trying to target this whole time. Flat 6, slightly different than what we've been used to, but still okay. Flat 7, right? Totally normal, part of the chord. Flat 2, that's going to sound pretty strong. That's probably the most out of key note that we have so far. And then we start over at flat 3. So when we do this, yeah, I'm playing a note. I'm playing flat 2. That would be this. Right, that's me singing the flat 2 while playing the chord. Singing that note while playing this. Definitely a dissonant note. Not a completely unheard of note in a minor context, though. There are some minor contexts where flat 2 is the note to play. Not really this track. This track doesn't really have flat 2 happening. It has normal 2. So this note will sound a little tense. But again, do I care? No, I don't care about any of that. What I value more is the fact that I can copy and paste a minor pentatonic scale up 3 frets. How easy is that, right? So many ideas I can play just by doing something right here, like running a scale, and then going up 3 frets, doing it again. Now, of course, do I want to like freely land on whatever note I want? I need to be a little bit careful. Like if I did this, and I sat on this note because it's comfortable, I can feel it in the shape. What is this note of the actual chord? Flat 2, right? So that note might be a little strong if it happens. So I need to use my ear and my intuition to resolve out of that if I want to. So maybe I could do this. Right, move up a fret, because then if I resolve on this note, that's 2 of the chord. That's a way more normal note to play. But again, playing out of the key, I don't really care. What I care more about is the fact that I can just copy and paste whatever minor idea I'm playing over the actual chord, up 3 frets, play it right there. And the fact that I'm out of the key is kind of cool. If we're looking for that sound, if we want that out of key sound, then here, there's a really easy way to do it, right? Go up 3 frets, play the exact same thing, minor pentatonic, and you're going to be featuring the core note of this whole series, the flat 5, right? But you'll also have some other kind of interesting notes. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, kind of don't have to think about it too much. Just experiment, just try stuff out. And if you're outside of the key, just be aware that you are, but don't be afraid of it. Just kind of say, okay, I'm outside of the key. I'm going to play this idea real quick, get right out of it, resolve, just to kind of create a really interesting, unique color for your playing. And this is a super easy way to do it. So with all that in mind, let's go over some licks and ideas using the 2 sounds that we just talked about. All right, let's wrap up this video with a couple more ideas based on our new pretend chord. So this is the actual chord, E flat minor. We're simply going up 3 frets and pretending minor. And we were talking about 2 different types of minor. We were talking about melodic minor starting here on our pretend chord spot. That would sound like this. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, natural 6, natural 7. And then we were also talking about playing just straight up like minor pentatonic right here. Now, the interesting thing is, like we talked about, the more fancy sound of those 2, the melodic minor, is actually more in the key. So that one, even though it's in of itself is a fancier sound, it's more normal. The pentatonic, even though that is a more normal sound, it's actually more out of the key because of the notes. So always keep that in mind. So speaking of melodic minor, let's go over our first idea. So again, this is the actual chord. We're pretending this is our root, and we're playing 1, flat 3, natural 7. In a little chord shape like that. We're also doing this up an octave right here. Again, the chord shape looks a little bit different because of the tuning of the guitar, but it's the same thing. 1, flat 3, normal 7, 1, flat 3, normal 7. Really targeting the main sounds of this melodic minor. And I'm traveling through the shapes kind of like this. And then resolving, to a strong note for E flat minor. Pretty simple, nice sound. I like these shapes. They're just very, very significant sounding. Let's see what it sounds like over the track. Here we go. Do a little slower. Kind of free time. Right? Very cool sounding. Really helps you hear that flat 5 of the actual chord pretty well. Kind of stands out when I play it like that. So that's a nice one. Again, based off 2 little chord shapes. 1, 3, normal 7 of our pretend chord. And then 1, 3, normal 7 up the octave. Next one is still melodic minor, but it's more of just like a full shape, based more kind of on a little arpeggio. That's the shape. So again, pretending this is my chord, even though it's this. Starting by playing normal 7, 1, 3, 5, flat 3. Normal 7 up top, 6, and then 1, 3, 5, 1, flat 3, 5, normal 7 up top. And then maybe hammering onto this. The 6 of this, our pretend chord, is actually the root of the actual chord. So I can target that note and resolve. Pretty nice. I can kind of throw that in pretty much wherever I want over this track because it's so subtle sounding. Right, that was the run. A lot of those notes are really already in the E flat minor sound, so it's very easy to resolve out of it, to be honest. And also, side note, if you remember from the previous video, we talked about a sound that was minor pentatonic of the actual chord with no 5. So that was 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 7, 1, no 5. That sound is essentially the exact same thing that we're doing when we pretend up 3 frets and play melodic minor. Check it out. Here's the normal E flat minor pentatonic and no 5. Right? Here's the beginnings of melodic minor up 3 frets. Right? Isn't it pretty much exactly the same thing? I'm missing 2 notes. If I play the full thing, it's really this. But most of those core sounds are exactly what we talked about in the previous lesson. So that's probably why, if you were wondering, that's probably why they sound so familiar. Okay. Next one is also going to be melodic minor, but with a different sort of lick idea based on some chord shapes. And these are very open chords that I like to play, and they're all pretty much inversions of each other, but they contain the main chord notes of melodic minor. We're going to start here, F sharp, that's the root of our pretend chord, right? That's the sound we're thinking about. I'm just doing it down an octave. Watch this, 1, 5, flat 3 chord shape. 1, 5, flat 3. I'm using, of course, pick and fingers to do this, like this. Okay, then I'm going up right here. This is flat 3, same chord, flat 3, 1, 5, just an inversion. You playing it like a lead. Next one is going to be 5, flat 3, normal 7. Again, featuring that sound of the melodic minor. It's really that normal 7. And then I'll resolve. How am I resolving? I'm playing this note, pulling it back a whole step because I know that's the root of the actual chord that's happening. Move around however I want. Let's try that over the track. Same thing. So E flat minor. Here we go. Figure out how you want to play it, of course. Definitely a cool sound, very different sounding because of the jumpiness of those shapes, but pretty cool. Okay, next one is going to be kind of getting into the copy and pasting idea, but we're not going to be 100% copy and pasting ideas. We're still going to be playing the melodic minor sound, but kind of using the same shape. E flat minor, starting it with the actual normal sound. I'm playing this figure. What am I playing right here? That's our root, E flat minor, normal sound that's actually happening. Right? That's flat 7, 1, flat 3, 5, jumping up to the 2, walking down little arpeggio. Right? So that's all E flat minor, kind of minor 9 if you want to think about it like that. But notice the note I'm ending on right there. That's on F sharp, the root of our pretend chord, so I'm going to do virtually the same lick. Right? What am I doing? I'm playing the original lick was really 1, 3, 5, jump up to the 2, play 2 and flat 3. That's what I'm doing right here. 1, 3, 5, go up to the 2, flat 3. And then I eventually resolve. Notice I'm still, when I'm coming down, that's our minor shape. 1, flat 3, 5, 2, flat 3. I'm coming down playing this note. What note is that? Same note from earlier. The natural 7 of our pretend chord, just to kind of keep the sound going. I don't have to do that, but I'm choosing to do that now. Here's the whole thing. Pretend chord, same idea. And then we just resolve in whatever way we want. Right? So notice that tiny little touch of that pretend chord just kind of sneaking its way into the middle of that lick, and then you get out of it. E flat minor, F sharp minor, back to E flat. Let's try that over the track. This is a cool one. Roll it back just a little bit. E flat minor, start the lick. Again, pretty subtle, but still familiar because we're playing the same idea. This whole thing, just doing it up 3 frets. Same idea. Right? Really cool one. I like that one a lot because it is the same idea, but we're just copying and pasting it. E flat minor, F sharp minor. Very cool sound. Okay, let's see what we got next. Let's see. This one is going to be another copy and paste lick, but now we're going to literally copy and paste it. Where that one was still retaining the melodic minor sound. So I was, starting E flat normal minor, and then I was moving up 3 frets playing melodic minor. Now I'm going to literally play the same thing. I'm going to play E flat minor, like pentatonic normal minor, and then I'm going to go up 3 frets and play normal minor pentatonic. This is going to be a more out sound, but very easy to play because I'm literally playing the same exact thing, no alteration as I travel between the two sounds. This lick is also used in the beginning of the video. And it flows pretty well. I like it. So we start here on E flat minor. Again, just plain E flat minor idea. So the shape is 1, 2, flat 3, 5, 2, 1, flat 3, like that. I'll do it slower. Then when I get to this flat 3, I come down like this. That's me playing just all fourths descending. Flat 3, flat 7, 4, 1. So check out the lick. It's kind of cool just by itself. But then what I do is I do that lick, the same idea. When I get to the bottom, I restart verbatim the same lick on the root of the pretend chord, right? Up 3 frets. I do this. Right? It's the same exact thing. So in a row. And then when I get here, I go up a minor 7 arpeggio right here, really hammering the sound in. When I get to the top, resolve up a fret, finally getting back to E flat. So when I do this sound, I'm playing this sound, copying and paste it up here. I'm definitely playing notes that are not in the key, but again, I don't care. The point is to retain like the familiarity of those two ideas flowing into each other. Very cool sound. Let's try this over the track, see what it sounds like. Roll it back a little bit. Oops, here we go. E flat minor, starting it. I'm also playing it a little faster in the beginning of the solo. If you check it out at some point again, as I started, I kind of slowly speed up as I get through it so that by the time I get to this note, that final F, it's on the downbeat. It's a really cool one because it's again, there's no thought happening. It's just, I have an idea that sounds cool over E flat. I'm literally doing the exact same thing, no difference, up 3 frets. And do I care that some of those notes are not in the key? No, I care about keeping the shape, retaining the shape, because it's easy to play, and honestly, it sounds cool. The fact that it's outside of the chord sounds cool. It pulls your ears away, and then finally when you resolve, after that final note, it's very satisfying. And this last one is also going to be a really simple one, another copy and pasting one, probably the simplest one of all of them. We're going to play a descending E flat minor pentatonic, doesn't get any simpler. Right there, just standard pentatonic. We're going to move up 3 frets, do the exact same thing. The only thing we do have to remember is how we're going to resolve, and we need to find a comfortable spot to move. So if I play this shape, I know that's my root. If that's my root, that's the flat 3. I know the flat 3 of this new pretend chord is actually the flat 5 of the actual chord that's happening. So I can just take that note, move it up a fret, and resolve. So I can do a figure like this and kind of do that and resolve in that way. Move around like that. Let's see what this sounds like over the track. Check it out. Works pretty well, right? Especially towards the end of the phrase, just resolving in and out of it. Now, you might be wondering, what am I really doing right there? I'm coming down minor pentatonic and then resolving here. What does it feel like I'm now doing? Doesn't it feel like I'm now playing major? And that's sort of what this would be, right? Because think about this. E flat minor is our actual sound. What's its relative major? We've talked about this. It's F sharp major. What is our pretend chord? F sharp minor. So if you wanted to, you could think about that instead. You can play an F sharp minor idea, knowing that you're outside of the key, and then transition to F sharp major. And that would also work, right? Didn't really talk about that necessarily in the lesson that we just did, but that's another way you can do it. Minor pentatonic up top, F sharp minor, major pentatonic. And that would also work. Let's try that, just traveling back and forth between those two. F sharp minor, that's the pretend chord, right? The out sound. Major. Let's try one more time. F sharp minor pentatonic. Very out. Major. I'm just playing literally F sharp minor pentatonic, F sharp major pentatonic. Because, as you should know, F sharp major pentatonic is the same thing as E flat minor pentatonic, right? So there's so many different ways to look at this sound, so many different ways to approach it. And as long as you test out as many as you can see on the fretboard, you'll find some ideas that really lock in with what you're doing. So that's the idea of this pretend chord sound. It's such a great idea because you can really use licks that you already know in a totally different context, giving you a totally different sound. And as long as you're shooting for a specific sound, like targeting the flat 5 of the actual chord, you can get some really great sounds that really feature the note that you're trying to bring out. All right, that does it for this powerful Flat 5 mini-series. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's really one of my favorite things to do, to take a simple sound and just target one tiny little element of that sound to see how much material you can actually get. So hopefully throughout the past 3 videos, you were able to gather some interesting ideas and implement them into your own playing. As usual, if you enjoyed this type of instructional material, feel free to check out my entire guitar method through Patreon at the link below. See you guys in the next one.